This is Big Joe USMC 86 from Open Forum Radio. And right now you're listening to one of my favorite podcasts, From Page to Screen. And while you're listening, or after you're listening, could you do me a favor and all the other guys a favor from Open Forum Radio and check out our podcast too as well. So enjoy the show. Check out Open Forum Radio too. Thanks.
Well, hey there, folks, and I would say welcome to another episode of From Page to Screen's podcast, but to me, this is actually a special episode of From Page to Screen podcast for two reasons. One is actually my 40th birthday, but more importantly, I mean, on the other From Page to Screen podcasts, I spend so long talking about movies like Avatar and all sorts of movies that I actually watch at the cinema and watch on TV and watch on DVD. This is actually the first time in From Page to Screen's history where I have actually got someone as a guest who actually makes these things. So for me, this is a historical moment for the From Page to Screen podcast, and I'm going to turn the mic over for as long as he needs to my very, very special guest, Joe. So would you like to introduce yourself, Joe, where you come from, and tell us a bit about yourself?
First, thanks for having me, and happy birthday. That's awesome. My name is Joe McClean. I am a filmmaker in Los Angeles. And that's pretty much what I am.
And how long have you been a filmmaker?
I actually started as an actor. I started acting in theater in high school, and I went to Utah has a huge Shakespearean festival where they have like a replica of the Globe Theater and stuff, and people from all over the country go there and from high school, and they compete with Shakespeare monologues and whatever. And I won a competition in high school, which sent me to university. And but the scholarship only lasted for a year. So when the money dried up, I said, well, I guess it's time for bigger and better things. So I packed it up and moved to New York overnight, and slowly but surely worked into the New Jersey and New York theater scene. And then I spent 2 years on the road touring with theater productions that toured around the United States. I did Peter Pan and the Helen Keller Story and shows like that. And while I was on the road, stuck in a tour van, I started writing screenplays just to pass the time. And by the time I got back to New York, it was sort of evident that this was something that excited me a little bit more, the writing aspect. So I did it once again, packed up and moved to LA, and I've been here since 2005.
I mean, I'm not sort of going to compare you and I together, but years ago I tried to write screenplays, and I did actually manage to write the screenplays, but I could never actually get these things sold. Once the scholarship sort of ended, was there ever a part of you that thought, I don't know whether I can pursue it anymore, or did you instinctively know that you were good at what you do and you should 100% pursue it?
No, I think that's something that I think everybody, maybe anybody that's an artist goes through that, because I've been through many accounts on my own, and when I've had to talk other people, my friends, figuratively off the bridge, because you get to a point where you're just not sure either you can pay the bills anymore, or not sure anybody understands why you're doing what you're doing, or you're just not having enough success. And you just think, well, should I go back to school? Should I, choose a different career altogether? And lots of people do it. And really it's about just sticking in the game, long enough. And so really what it comes down to is you're not waiting for that big break, or I'm not anyways. I think that's more of a naive thing to do, to think that, I'm going to write a screenplay, and tomorrow it's going to sell for $1 million. It ends up being more about, man, I need that one little tiny bit to raise my confidence, which could be as easy as someone calling you and saying, oh, I read your screenplay and I really liked it. I'd like to talk about it. That's just enough to keep you going for a couple more days. And then you hope you bump into another one of those little confidence boosters just to keep you going, just a little bit longer.
I mean, years ago when I was doing a screenwriter, I had nobody to talk to. Podcasts weren't even, around. DVD hadn't kicked in, so you couldn't really watch these making-ofs or listen to the commentaries.
Yeah.
I very naively just put my screenplay in an envelope and sent it off to Miramax and thought, brilliant, wonderful. Yeah. Of course, these things just come back unopened, and right. I took a few knocks like that. Have you got any tips for people who need that kick up the rear end?
No, I mean that's how it is for everybody. I mean, I wrote my very first screenplay, which is a piece of crap, in a spiral notebook while I was on the road, and I did it longhand. And I wrote it. When I got home, I typed it out, and I thought, this is absolutely wonderful. But nobody liked it, so that was hard. But when you get to like a point where you're sending it out to agencies, it's hard, but it really ends up being a legal thing. You can't take it as rejection because they're not allowed to read things unless they have requested them or you've signed a release form. Because let's say you submit a story, somebody reads it, and then 2 years later a movie kind of like yours comes out in the theater, you could sue them, and then you could use you could say, oh, I sent it to them on this date, and they saw my, their production went into production after they read my screenplay. So they have 9 times out of 10 they have to send it back to you unopened or just throw it in the garbage can.
Definitely. And I think
that becomes
writers have got to realize that, haven't they?
Go ahead.
Writers have got to realize that just because it comes back in the mail doesn't mean someone's read it and doesn't like it. It just means you've not sent it in properly.
Absolutely. And you really shouldn't be sending anybody a screenplay. You need to be sending them a query letter. And usually they won't accept a query letter unless somebody has recommended you to them. So that's the catch-22, So if they read your, a log line, like a one sentence about what your plot is, and they're interested in it, then they'll request the screenplay and you send it then.
Yeah, it's the hard one. Many times I ran into the you can't get an agent if you've not been published, and you can't get published if you've not got an agent. Many times. That
is absolutely it. And and I haven't sold a screenplay yet. What I've done is I wrote some screenplays on my own that I was able to use as writing samples, and then use those writing samples, and then other producers who have ideas of their own hire me to write their screenplays.
So you're using your screenplays as a calling card, aren't you? As a CV item. Exactly.
And then, so and it's funny because as an actor, I was thinking to myself, I don't have enough control over my career because it doesn't matter how much education you've got. It's still somebody else's decision to let you work or not. So I thought, wow, if I write these things, then I can write all day long, any day, and no one has to give me permission to write anything. But then I realized I needed, someone to purchase it or to make the movie. So that's when I started, producing my own stuff.
I mean, how many screenplays had you actually written before the first one became an actual film?
Well, all right. So I wrote my first write for hire screenplay was in 2002, and it was a thing about some producer had hired me to write something about another catastrophe in New York City. After the Freedom Tower had been built and someone trying to take that tower down just like the World Trade Center. I'm not sure it's a wonderful screenplay, even, however you feel about the topic, it's pretty bad. But after that, I got to writing a screenplay that I love called S Factor with a friend of mine, Joseph Campo. And it got quite a bit of attention because it's about a world-famous scientist named James Watson, famous from Watson and Crick. They discovered DNA in the 50s, and actually got to talk with Dr. Watson, and I can't say I became his friend, but we had emails back and forth, and he sent me a Christmas present and stuff like that, and then being able to attach his name to it, I think, got us into a few more doors, you know what I mean? So saying, Dr. Watson, has approved this message kind of thing, made it so that people were more interested in reading our work. So that broke down that barrier. People read it, people liked it, and I was able to use that to get more work. But it was still writing other people's stuff. So when me and a friend, who is my partner in Mintan Production, Sergeant Patel, we moved out to Los Angeles. We had a screenplay ready that we were going to sell and we were going to finance, and it all fell through within months of getting here. And then here we are sitting in a crappy apartment in Los Angeles with not even a screenplay to shoot. So we made the idea like, well, we can't have moved here for nothing. So I literally locked myself in a room for a week and wrote a movie called That Fall, which we spent the next 6 months shooting, and then premiered it at the Beverly Regency and Culver Studios as part of the Dances with Films Film Festival in 2006. So that was
this is that a short film or was it a feature?
Feature film, yeah. There's one clip of it on my website, redandtanproductions.com. There's like a montage of the two main characters falling in love.
I mean, I was on your website sort of moments before we actually started this conversation. There's a lot of stuff on there. There's a lot of information about you. It's a good sort of introduction to you.
Yeah, well, you've got to put yourself out there. If people can't find you, there's no way in hell you have a chance of making it.
Well, not at all. And how did you come up with the name, sort of Red and Tan Productions? Was there a few names, or does it just...
No, it actually... We were in New York, we were just shopping one day talking about production companies, and this is before Sarju and I even had had a company, and I can't remember if it was Sarju or if it was a cousin of his that was with us, but it just became an inpolitically correct joke because my heritage is Irish and his is Indian, so red and tan fit perfectly.
And it works. It's a memorable name.
People always chuckle when they, because not a lot of people will ask, but we'll have email correspondence or whatever, and then when we finally meet someone face to face, there's this moment of recognition, and a smile slightly grows over someone's face because they realize what we've done.
And then they feel embarrassed for actually asking you several weeks before.
Yeah, it's great. I love it.
So how sort of scary was it watching the first project that you'd done actually being shown? Can you still remember being petrified?
Well, do you mean watching the screening or the process of getting up to it?
Probably both, but I'm referring to the screening, knowing that other people are actually watching your work.
Yeah, that part's, well, I can't tell that's just unbelievably exciting. I don't think I've ever been afraid of that kind of thing. Even when I was an actor, I never was the kind of person that had, butterflies going out on stage or anything like that. It was just excitement. The embarrassment comes now because that movie is, 7 years ago now, and we've made leaps and bounds in our ability as not only as filmmakers, but even with the kind of equipment that we have and the editing abilities we have. So when I go back and watch that movie, I watch it with fear on my face because there's just moments of it. It's just so bad. So I'm very similar for my previous self because I can just imagine me sitting in that audience thinking I had just made this incredible masterpiece and wondering what the hundreds of people in the audience are thinking.
It's very similar. You can write what you think is the best screenplay in the world. You read it 5 years later, it's like, what on earth is this?
Absolutely.
Throw it in the bin. I don't think that ever wears off because that's part of your nature as a filmmaker. I would have thought you've got to grow, progress, and get better.
You have to. It's constantly growing. And I'll tell you what, a lot of the movies that we make, we just sort of accept our screw ups and move on to the next piece. We'll release it knowing something is terrible, but we also know that we won't make that mistake again.
You don't do a George Lucas and go back and change it constantly then?
Yeah. No, I hope that I don't aspire to be George Lucas.
No. Although his bank account would be lovely, wouldn't it? His toy merchandise. So how does your workload look for this year? How is this year compared to last year for you? This year
I hope I can continue to say this for the rest of my life, but this year is going to be better than any other year yet. We had starting last year, I actually wrote a screenplay for someone else. It was based on another producer's short story, and he had ways that he was going to finance it and get this thing made, and then eventually the project just sort of slowed down to a stop and died. But I had continued to work on the screenplay, and over the course of a couple of years, I fell in love with it. So last year, me and Sarju went to the producer who had originally hired me to write the screenplay, and we optioned it from him, which is sort of a backwards way to do it because essentially I had to pay for my own work. But we optioned that. It's called Viral. It's a psychological thriller about a guy who gets trapped in a cycle inside his own head, sort of a mental cycle. But we got that out to a bunch of people that were willing to read it, and things sort of took off for that. We got a really great casting director named J.C. Cantu at Betty May Casting. They cast Black Swan, Crazy Heart. They do a lot of stuff for Robert Rodriguez. And they sort of took a chance on us because we're nobodies essentially. So having their name attached to it was really great. It helped us get a really great director of photographer attached to it, David A. Armstrong. He's most known for he's the DP for all the Saw films. And then also unit production manager Jenny Hinkey, who did 500 Days of Summer, amongst other things. So we were able to build this really great team, and now for that project, essentially, we're just waiting for it to be cast. So that takes some time, but through that project, and I know this is a bit of a long story, but through that project, we were talking to different celebrity actors and producers or whatnot, and my lawyer gave another one of my ideas to a producer that works with Joseph Fiennes, who we were trying to get our original project out to begin with. He liked this idea. His name is Barry Navidi. He did Merchant of Venice. He just is about to release Wild Salome at the Venice Film Festival. he liked this very independent, low-budget project that I have called Life Tracker, which is about basically a scientist who discovers that you can look at a person's DNA as a timeline and then essentially predict their future. So if you can look in someone's DNA and say, oh, you broke your leg at 8, I can see that in your DNA where you might have had some bone-mending cells that fixed your bone at that age. I can then look for that same genetic response later on in your DNA and then do the math and figure out, oh, you're going to break a bone also when you're 47. So he really liked this high-concept idea on a very, very low budget, and that thing just took off like gangbusters. So that movie, the leads have been cast. We've got a bunch of our financing in place, and we start shooting that mid-June. The race is to finish it by the end of July and then have it edited by September when the Sundance deadline is.
Right. And then what's the process on that? So if you get it done, you then apply to Sundance. Keep your fingers crossed, and hopefully you'll be in there.
Yeah. I hate to say that. I mean, obviously, it's you have to have a good movie. There's that's the ground floor for sure. But there's also a lot of politics involved. So it's about knowing the right people and networking at the right events. And I hope that through the producer we're working with, Barry, and through our lawyer who's very well connected and very amazing. I hope that we can use the connections that we've got to be closer to the people who are selecting the movies at Sundance.
I mean, it sounds like you've got a good producer there because he's worked with Pacino and stuff, hasn't he? That's Barry.
Yeah. Well, that's sort of his bread and butter. He did in Merchant of Venice. It has Al Pacino, Jeremy Irons, Joseph Fiennes, and then Wild Salome is about Al Pacino performing the character of the king in Oscar Wilde's Salome. And if you've seen Looking for Richard, it's like that in the sense that it's a documentary about him doing a role. But then, so he's an Al Pacino guy, but a very good producer in his own right. So
definitely, I'm pretty sure if he wasn't, I don't think Pacino would work with him more than once.
Yeah, I agree.
That is fantastic. So that is potentially going to be shot this summer. Fingers crossed.
Yeah. Well, we are almost there. We're fundraising like crazy, and at this point, nobody has said anything about not starting to shoot this June. So, and it's a 19-day shooting schedule, and it's just about getting it done. So now it's time to get to work.
Definitely. So it's not just a case of writing a screenplay, sending it off, and then you're done, is it?
No. And you know what? The problem is, there's so many people that make a movie and it's totally finished, but then you forget that there's a ton of money that goes into getting it seen as well. If every film festival, entry fee is $50 to $100, you also have to print and mail the DVD screeners, and you have to put together press kits. If you get into the festival, you have to travel to that festival. You have to make posters and flyers, and you have to hire a publicist. And if you plan on doing anything above and beyond that, say, billboards or TV spots or radio spots, where you're looking at, you can get into the hundreds of thousands of dollars just, for publicity. I mean, obviously for a huge motion picture, we're talking about in the millions of dollars.
Yeah, I mean, with a huge movie, though, you've got a massive studio backing you, I suppose.
Exactly. Yeah, so right now, it's funny. That's where we're at. A third of our budget is actually for what happens after the movie is completely done. We've got a movie that we can already watch, and then we're going to spend the next third of our budget.
Well, that's got to be quite a scary part. You think, well, we finished it.
Yeah, exactly.
We finished it. Why do we have to spend more money?
It's awful. It's awful. I'm actually feeling that way. I feel that way about short films too, and it's it's actually a little bit tougher on short films, which we've done a lot of, because a feature film has a future. You can put it in a theater and people can buy tickets to it and you can make your money back. A short film essentially is never going to make money unless you're one of the very, very lucky few. It is more of a calling card that you put at a film festival and hope someone sees your talent and wants you to work on something else. But it doesn't mean you don't have those expenses. There are still film festival submission fees. There's still traveling. There's still posters. There's still PR. So like our most current film, we spent $1,200 on the budget altogether, and I think I've already spent $3,000 or $4,000 to get people to see it.
And how's the reception been for your current one?
So far, so good, but it does cause some drama.
Do you get a little bit upset when I'm hoping nobody's ever given you a negative review or anything? But do you get a little bit upset when someone says, I didn't like it?
No. There's definitely been negative reviews, obviously, but I don't. I don't really. I guess I think I'm pretty good at that. I don't really care. I want to try to use it as constructive feedback if I can. I don't think I've ever received a review that was just nasty. I think people have a right to their opinion, but nobody has ever said, like, this guy should never work again. But I've definitely had bad reviews, and you just got to roll with it.
But they've been constructive bad reviews, hopefully.
Yeah. Or at least I can make them constructive for myself.
Yeah, I mean, if somebody watches one of your films and says, couldn't stand it, why? I don't know, I just didn't like it. That is of no use to you whatsoever, is it? Because you can't learn from that.
You can't do anything. But you know what? It's great when someone gives you an absolute reason why. For example, probably our most successful movie was a short film called Money Please. And Money Please is about a family who basically goes through history playing a copy of the board game Monopoly. And as they play the board game Monopoly, they fall deeper and deeper into the crash of the American economy. It's a sort of a raunchy comedy, but it's got some politics behind it. But the problem with Money Please is it's a 10-minute movie, and the family doesn't sit down to play the board game until maybe 3.5 minutes in. So essentially, the movie is this family playing the board game, but more than a quarter of the movie is exposition, and that wouldn't fly in any film. So if it was a feature, it would have fallen flat on its face. Thank God it was only 10 minutes long, and people were able to sit through 3 minutes to get to the actual meat of the movie.
I mean, I just watched that one maybe 40 minutes ago.
Uh-huh.
I got a little bit confused initially.
Mm-hmm.
And, I mean, I liked it. It made me chuckle. I think the guy who played the banker is very lucky. But yeah, definitely very, very well shot. The storyline confused me a little bit, whether that's just because I'm from the UK and not really familiar with that economics and whatnot. But I enjoyed that one. But the previous one that I watched was the David Lynch film.
Yeah, How to Make a David Lynch Film.
Yes,
yeah.
And that was the one I watched a couple of days ago. So if you want me to give you a review on that one, I shall unleash that if you will.
Yeah, unleash. Here.
Do you think I liked it, or are you not sure yet?
That's a hard question because really, it sort of depends on whether or not you like David Lynch.
Yep.
Am I right in that? I mean, if you like David Lynch, if you really think David Lynch is the genius artist that he and the world have painted him to be, then you probably are not going to like the parody movie I made about his movies.
I used to like David Lynch, and I'll go into detail a little bit more on that one.
Uh-huh.
As I sort of mentioned earlier, the From Page to Screen podcast usually has a co-host. His name's Harold, but you can find him on Twitter as Big Pimpin, SFLA. I spoke to him the other day, and I'd mentioned that you and I were talking about this film, How to Make a David Lynch Film.
Uh-huh.
And I actually asked him, had he seen any David Lynch films, and he just said no, he hadn't.
Right.
To me, if he watched How to Make a David Lynch Film, he wouldn't get it.
Right.
I've seen the majority of the David Lynch movies, so all the shots that were in that film, I 100% got them. It was probably a day before I clicked on the link, because you sent it to me one day, and I thought I'll click on that in the morning, I'll have a look at it later on. Because I'm quite nervous sometimes about short films.
Yeah.
And I was a little bit nervous about looking at a film called How to Make a David Lynch Film. Because I've seen a lot of the David Lynch films. And I won't go through every single shot because I think people should watch it. But the initial shot, which parodied Razorhead, sort of made me think, oh. But I swear by the end of that film, it was brilliant. I thought it was very, very funny.
Well, that is great to hear.
It was very, very funny, and I was nodding because I've seen all Eraserhead and Blue Velvet and Lost Highway so many times.
Right. It
very, very
it's one of those movies. So I hope that there is a hope that at least people who know him and love him can still like the movie and then just disagree with me. There's also a hope that people that don't know any David Lynch at all, and this has happened at this point, but people that don't know any David Lynch at all can at least still giggle that there's some funny things happening in my movie that they don't need to know David Lynch for. But if you know David Lynch very well, then obviously there's a lot more jokes that you're going to understand.
I mean, have you had anybody who's a real hardcore David Lynch fan get offended by the film? Because I would be confused why. There's nothing offensive in that film whatsoever.
Yeah, no one has been offended. I mean, there has been some people offended by things that they would be offended by in a David Lynch film. There has been people that are offended by violence and nudity, but I can't make a movie called How to Make a David Lynch Film without having violence and nudity, because that's what David Lynch does.
You would just have a short film about a guy in a lawnmower, wouldn't you? That would be it.
It would be ridiculous. So people have been offended by that, but there's nothing I can do. I actually, obviously the first thing I did when I had it done was everything I could to get it over to David Lynch himself. It's funny because I think he lives less than a mile from me. I'm right at the base of the Hollywood Hills, and he lives just up in the hills. And I was able to get it to an assistant of his personal assistant at his production company called Asymmetrical Productions. I told him what I had done first in an email, and he said, "Sounds great, send me a copy, here's the address." So I sent him the copy, and about a month later he wrote me an email back that was awesome. He said, "I watched your movie and I thought it was very funny." He said, "I think that for the average viewer, you hit the nail on the head. But because I work for David and because I love David, I feel I have to defend him." And so then he went into a small diatribe about how David Lynch films do have plots, and David does not try to be artistic just for the sake of being artistic. And he went on and on, and in the end, it was great to hear that he got a chuckle out of it. And that he wasn't upset, but that he was defensive. So that was great. He told me he would throw it on David's desk, and I have no confirmation that David ever saw it. But I did write his assistant an email again when I found out we were going to be screening at the beginning of June at a theater here in LA. Unfortunately, he wrote me back and said David's going to be out of town for work that weekend, and that because David's out of town on work, he's going to be away on vacation. So neither of them will see it in the theater either.
But I think the main stumbling point for that film would be people like my co-host who haven't seen a David Lynch film. Exactly. I would be curious to see what people who have never seen one would think of the film.
Here's the thing. Like, they always talk about having a target audience for a movie. You got to know who your audience is so that you can try to bring your movie to them. So I'm going to be playing we're playing at the Dances with Films Film Festival. It's on June 5th. We play at 12:30 in the afternoon. We play with 7 other short films, a block of short films to make up enough time, the same as a feature. There's going to be comedies, there's going to be dramas, there's going to be experimental films in that block. And yes, there might be people in the audience that, love experimental or love comedy or love drama. There might be some of those movies' target audiences in the audience. The thing that's great, I hope, I'm assuming that's great about the David Lynch movie is that I think the film festival audience is my target audience. Because the film festival audience is going to be filled with artsy-fartsy filmmaking, film lovers who I think overwhelmingly think David Lynch is a genius.
Definitely. It's not going to be filled with people who just wander off to a multiplex on a Saturday afternoon to watch the latest Harry Potter film. Exactly. It's going to be a hardcore movie. Exactly. So fanatics.
The theater holds 250 people, so I think it's possible I will have – there's going to be some random, family members of filmmakers that were brought as audience, whatever, but I could have 200 people in that audience that are my target audience, and I'm hoping that everyone just gets it,
Definitely. Fingers crossed for you. So where's this festival held again and when?
It's called the Dances with Films Film Festival. It's actually my 4th time in this festival. I love them to death. It's going to be at the Laemmle Sunset 5. It's in Hollywood. It's at the corner of Crescent Heights and Sunset Boulevard. It's a little art house for the people that obviously aren't in the States. It's a little art house theater in Los Angeles, but very well known. It plays at 12:30 on June 5th, so come on out if you're around.
Fantastic. I won't be able to be there, but I'm definitely fingers crossed, and I look forward to finding out how the feedback is and stuff. But no, I really, really enjoyed it. I started off nervous about watching it because I thought there's this weird thing where if it was a feature film, people tend to be eager to watch them for some reason. Yeah, but if it's a short, people think, well, how much effort goes into a short film? Exactly. I know for a fact that probably just as much, if not more, goes into a short film than does a feature.
Well, that was maybe one of the stupid things that we did with David Lynch because it started as a joke. Like, I sort of decided, like, all right, everybody loves this Lynch guy. I'm going to have to give him a shot. I had seen Mulholland Drive years before. I had seen a little bit of Twin Peaks, and I didn't get it. I can't say that I hated him, but I didn't get it. So I decided I was going to just, glue my eyeballs open and force myself to watch his canon. And that's what I did. And I found myself sitting there with a pen and paper writing down all the things that appear in every single one of his movies. It's like he made the same movie, the same weird movie over and over and over again. And again, this is my opinion, but having a few beers one night with friends, it was just like, oh man, wouldn't it be funny if we just made this stupid movie about how all of these things are in every single David Lynch movie. And it got so out of hand that I rebuilt. I actually manage an apartment building here in Los Angeles, and I had a vacancy, which I turned into my film studio. I rebuilt a living room set from Lost Highway, all the walls, the tables, the furniture, everything from that set, and rebuilt it inside my apartment just so I could shoot one scene from my 10-minute movie.
I mean, if you look at the screen grabs from your film and then from the actual David Lynch film, you've near enough got it shot for shot, haven't you?
Yeah, I mean, I did it on a budget. He had millions of dollars, but I did it as best as I could on the hundreds of dollars that I spent.
It definitely works. It really, really did. I mean, my fiancée watched it maybe about an hour ago on the laptop in the kitchen when I was rewatching it, and she sort of said, "Is it meant to be a comedy?" I'm like, "Yes, it is." And she's probably seen a few of the David Lynch films, and she was howling. She thought it was brilliant.
Awesome. Very good to hear. Thank you very much.
No, you're welcome. But no, it definitely works. So are you going to move on to like how to do a David Cronenberg film or anything like that in the future?
No, but that has been presented. I think a lot of people have said that. There was that sort of touches on another subject, but the like when we got to set, I think I sort of naively just assumed that everybody that I got involved in the project was going to feel the same way about David Lynch that I did. But we had a few people that they loved being in my movie and having fun making it, but they were very, very strong Lynch proponents. I think the two biggest ones were Phil Kelly, who plays the white-faced man in my movie, which is a ripoff of Robert Blake, and then also the leading actress Bruna Mattson, who copies Isabella Rossellini and Patricia Arquette. But those two actors, they absolutely love David Lynch. And so while we were on set, it was more than just filmmaking. It was, debating what some people would say is the greatest director of our time. So,
I mean, I used to be a really, really big David Lynch fan. I watched all of Twin Peaks, and I used to think the guy was a genius. But then I saw things like Lost Highway and Inland Empire, and I thought, you know what, he might not have a clue what he's doing. And sure enough, watching your film, there's a reference to that as well. It's like, if you don't understand it, you're a mongoloid. That.
What brought you? What made you love David Lynch before?
I think it was because I would read about him, and I mean, I was never a fan of Dune when he did that. I just didn't understand that. I was about 12, I think, when that film came out. I just didn't understand it. I thought, it's not Star Wars, but it looks alright. Twin Peaks, I think, would have brought me into David Lynch. Right. And then from Twin Peaks, it would be Mulholland Drive. I enjoyed. Now, the weird thing about Mulholland Drive is originally supposed to be a TV series.
Right.
So the first half of it's like a pilot episode for that, and then it became a movie. So they've stuck on this weird.
Yeah, but that's one of the things that's like people talk about. His plots are so crazy, and some people will spend hours trying to explain to you the plot of Mulholland Drive. But really, he shot this pilot, which the network didn't like because there were things in it that they didn't want to put on TV. Like there's one shot of a pile of dog crap on the street that they didn't think should be on TV or on a sidewalk. They also thought that the leading actresses were too old, so they didn't pick it up. And so a year later, he said to himself, let's go shoot some extra scenes. So we got the actresses back and shot some. That's where the whole like blue box and the key came in, and he didn't. It wasn't that story to begin with, and I don't know that he did. That it was. I think that's why it was so confusing. If he had written a feature film to begin with a beginning, a middle, and an end, it may have worked. But he was just trying to rescue a project that was wasted, I think.
To me, I don't really need to understand what, if he does have plots and if he does have full storylines and stuff, it's just nice to have a filmmaker out there that doesn't, I don't want everybody to be like Michael Bay.
Right. Well,
I want something different.
I agree with that, but I personally am a big fan of give me a story. I don't care if it comes in the form of Transformers 7 or The King's Speech 2, but I want to see a full on story myself.
Definitely. I couldn't spend the whole day watching David Lynch films.
Have you seen his web series Dumbland?
I saw some of it, not all of it. I wasn't a major fan of that.
Yeah, 8 2-minute episodes that will kill your brain cells.
Yep. I've read interviews and seen interviews with David, and they kill my brain cells. I have no idea what the guy's talking about, but it is nice that there's a filmmaker out there that does that. But I am
not going to argue that he uses sound like no other filmmaker is using it, and that he does it great. And I'm not going to argue that his movies aren't mesmerizing or beautiful to watch. But as a storyteller, I think he's a complete failure in my mind.
Oh, yeah, totally. Yeah, other than Twin Peaks, which the first few episodes of that were quite good, and it sort of lost its way in the second season. But but you matched on about the sound design. You matched a lot of that in your film. Yeah. Because watching at the beginning, it was quite eerie.
Yeah, but I tell you what, it was a hell of a lot easier for me. I mean, I would give credit to David Lynch for that genius. But all I did was listen to the movies and go, yeah, there seems to be a sound effect back there, and then talk to my sound editor and say, match that as close as you can.
I love the pause between words.
yeah, it gets me every time.
That works. But no, it's a wonderful little short film.
Well, that short, as soon as the screening happens at Dances with Films, we will be releasing it on the internet. So you should blog about it or something way after this podcast has been released, and let people know that it's available online to watch.
Oh, I most definitely will. Yeah, it's very, very good. So you said that 2009 was not quite as good as 2010. So is 2011 going to be even better than 2010 for you?
Well, 2011 we will be making this movie. 2012 should be even better. Fingers crossed, because January would be the Sundance Film Festival, and I want to be in it with my feature Life Tracker. And then from there, let's just keep hoping and that I get to keep taking small steps up that ladder. I'm hoping that making this movie Life Tracker will help me get the other feature film, Viral, on a more steady roll up the hill, because we actually have more money and we have more talent, frankly, in the crew on that movie. So I'd really like to get that one made, but at this point, I think I need a little bit more recognition. People need to be able to know who I am a little bit more before they're willing to come on to that project.
I mean, you're definitely you're snowballing in the right direction, aren't you, with the people you're working for, the casting companies that you've got?
Absolutely, and I am thankful to them every single day for even giving me the light of day.
Well, they obviously think you're worth it.
Well, and there's also some dumb luck. Like, I called up Betty May Casting to ask them if they would read my screenplay to consider casting it, and rather than an assistant or an intern answering the phone. Maybe they were out to lunch or something, but JC answered the phone himself, and he's one of the casting directors there. And he just said, "Yeah, sure. Why don't you send me the script?" And that was on a Thursday, I think. And on Monday, he called me and said he loved it and he wanted to have a meeting. I might not have gotten that had an intern answered the phone.
I mean, the business you're in, it's not all about luck, but I think you need the stars to align, don't you? You need the movie god smiling on you now and again.
Yeah, you certainly need a couple smiles.
It definitely sounds like you're getting them, though.
I'm trying.
So have you got more publicity and whatnot lined up for this? The run-up to the screening and festival?
Yeah, we've already got one really awesome review for how to make a David Lynch film from Movie Shark DeBlore. I think that's what her website is. But we also have another review coming out on Friday. These are from random websites, great websites, I'm sure, but I can't remember off the top of my head what the website is. So we've got a few more reviews coming out in print, which is great because I can just copy a link and send it to the VIPs, Yeah. But other than that, like I'm not like a lot of people want to make postcards and put them out for people to grab, but I sort of think that's a waste of money because you end up basically spending a lot of money for a postcard that someone's going to use as a keepsake and staple to their bulletin board. So I'm making one poster to put in the lobby, and then I'm just going to hand out my business cards, So if publicity comes my way, that is fantastic, but I can't be spending a ton of money on trying to get publicity for a movie that only cost me $1,200 to make.
No, not at all. I mean, you would use places like Twitter, use the internet, use podcasts like this one. You just use your word of mouth and
absolutely.
It's far better than a postcard, isn't it?
Yeah. And I have only very recently attacked the Twitter world because I think you're stupid if you don't realize that it is harnessing some power. So I'm having a blast because and I'm not one of those people that just spam you. Yes, I'm gonna post links to my movies and trailers and stuff like that, but I'm loving having conversations with just random people. In fact, I like it more than talking to people that I know personally, because there's always an element of, well, did you like this or did you like that? Or I'm going to show my mom how to make a David Lynch film, and she's going to love it no matter what I did.
She will think it's the best film in the history of filmmaking.
Exactly. And so if I'm talking to people I've never met, I mean, I would say 90% of the people that follow me on Twitter are filmmaker related in some way. But talking with them and showing them work and watching their work as well, like not only am I learning from them and having great conversations, but I'm also getting very honest feedback because they have nothing to gain from telling me that they think I'm a genius, like my mom.
I mean, I used to run a video business years ago, and people that would come in the shop would presume that whatever film I'm going to tell them to watch, even if it was a bad film, I would never give them a bad film. I will always tell them if it's a bad film because I want people to trust my opinion.
Right.
And because that's what you've got to do, isn't it? There's no point saying, it's really good, that film, if you know they're going to hate it.
Oh, no, absolutely.
They'll never ask you again.
And I might even be a little bit too paranoid because I get to a point where someone will tell me that the movie is good, and I won't believe them unless they tell me something they didn't like about it.
Yeah.
But that's my problem. I should be dealing with a therapist.
Yeah, I mean, I couldn't find anything I didn't like about it. I was nervous about watching it because I had the sort of, it's a short film. How good is it really going to be? It's a short film. And as soon as the razor headshot come up, I thought, if this is a serious film, I don't know how much I'll like it. But once it started doing the sort of parody and the humor kicked in, I was hook, line, and sinker.
Right. Well, it
dragged me in.
Awesome.
So I can't think of anything I didn't like about it.
Well, I can certainly, I talked to you earlier about making Money Please shorter. There are scenes now from this movie that I would cut completely, just because I don't think they play enough or play well enough, or they are just so unbelievably obscure that even David Lynch people won't get them. But I'm sure that even, and obviously I'm not making a comparison here. I'm just talking about a well-known filmmaker. But I'm sure when Steven Spielberg watches E.T. now, I'm sure he goes, "Oh man, I wish I would cut that. I wish I could edit that differently." Or, you're always going to critique your own work like that.
But that's part of the growth of you as a filmmaker, though, isn't it?
Yeah, I think so.
Musicians will listen to their early albums and think, "Oh, what was I doing?"
Right.
In the same way filmmakers will, or authors.
Yeah, true.
Stephen King threw Carrie in a dustbin, didn't he, before he got it published?
Right. Yeah. And talking about writers, I really feel like that's where it's at. I mean, I've been to a lot of film festivals. I've seen a lot of short films, and man, some of them just look so beautiful. I've seen some of them even shot on 35 millimeter, and that just, to me, that seems crazy for a short film to spend that kind of money. But they just the most beautiful movies in the whole world, really well edited. The sound design is perfect. The production is pristine. But then you just don't give a shit about the words that the actors are saying. Yeah. So really, it has to start with the word on the page. And I, at this point, call myself a writer-director, and I think it certainly has to be in that order. Because if you're shooting something that doesn't mean anything or isn't good at all, then there's no point in having great production quality.
I mean, for an audience, most sort of multiplex viewers, for them a short film is the thing that's at the beginning of a Pixar film.
Yeah, exactly. That's exactly
how would you sell go watch a short film, seek them out to someone who's a little bit nervous about watching short films?
To be honest with you, I don't think I have to, because that's where the world is coming. I think the majority of the audience is online now, and frankly, my 10-minute short films or my 5-minute short films are already way too long, because what the audience, the younger, up-and-coming, tech-savvy audience, what they want are 20 and 30-second movies. They want those viral videos. They want David Goes to Dentist, or they want, some guy busting his nuts on a skateboard. That's what they're watching. Now, I think that you can put content into that. I think you could make great 30-second, minute-long movies that are funny. In fact, now I don't know this filmmaker at all. I saw his movie a few years ago at a film festival, and it was I think it must have been less than a minute, but it was called Moosecock. I hope everyone listening will go try to find the movie Moosecock on the internet. It was shot on, I'm pretty sure it was shot on film, but less than a minute long, one really funny joke, done really well, and then you were done. There was no waiting for it. There was no trying to explain a plot or trying to explain characters, because you just don't have time to do that in a short film. But you know that, so I don't feel like I have to tell people to go see short films, because I think people are already watching them without realizing they're watching them. You have to understand that some of the best short films are actually commercials that you watch on television.
Yeah, true. And it's, I suppose, the iPod generation, isn't it?
Yeah, absolutely.
You're not going to watch a feeture film on your iPod, but you will probably watch, like, I've got my iPod filled with lots of movie trailers, which, in a sense, short films.
Absolutely, absolutely. And a lot, I mean, I think some people would even complain that, you know, I'm one of them that would complain that I hate when a movie trailer shows the entire movie.
Yeah.
But essentially, there you go. That's a short film with a beginning, middle, and an end.
I'm more a fan of the teaser trailer.
Yeah, I like that too.
I don't need to see all the funny bits.
Recently, I really loved the teaser trailer for Blue Valentine, which was
I've yet to see that one.
Yeah, it's just, the teaser trailer is just a shot of them standing outside next to a storefront singing a song on a ukulele. It's really, I just loved it.
So it works.
Yeah, really nice.
Well, do you want to sort of, as we tail up the end of this show here, do you want to give everybody your contact details, so how they can get in touch with you?
Yeah,
either
please.
To give you feedback or just have a general chat.
Please. You can contact me on Twitter at Red and Tan, REDANDTAN. You can find me on Facebook at Red and Tan Productions. But the easiest way is to just go to my website, which is www.redandtanproductions.com. And you can find everything that you need there, from Twitter to Facebook to watching my movies that we have posted. And then there's a contact button where you can send an email directly to me. I'd love to hear from people, so go on.
So everybody listening to this, consider that an order. Go and get in touch with him, because I will happily keep in touch with you. And I would love you to come on the show whenever you've got updates. And I'm going to keep in touch and find out how you get on with these festivals, as well as the other projects and stuff.
Yeah, sounds good. Well, I'll talk to you soon about how the screening on the 5th goes, of how to make a David Lynch film, and then as we get into production on Life Tracker, I'd love to keep in touch and give you an exclusive when it's shot before it goes to Sundance.
That would be an honor. Yep, and I will happily tell people to go and watch How to Make a David Lynch Film when the time's right for you there.
I'll send you the link as soon as it's up.
Fantastic, but I genuinely loved it. I mean, there's nothing for me to gain by saying, yes, I liked it if I didn't. I'm all for critiquing movies,
right.
But that one I really did. It became a nice little surprise for me.
Awesome, that's good to hear. I hope people feel that way when I get to be in the audience with them watching it.
I hope they do too. I'm sure they will, most definitely. Well, I'd like to thank everybody for that very special episode of From Page to Screen. If for any reason you've not managed to jot down Joel's contact details, just give me a shout and I will happily sort of put you in touch with him. It's been really, really great having you on this program, Joel.
Thank you
I look
very
forward
much
to doing
for
it
having
again.
me. And happy birthday again.
Thank you very much. And I'm hoping people who, it's like 10 years ago when I was trying to get somewhere, hopefully if someone's in that position now, they've learned a little bit from you and they can actually get to beyond where I was.
Yeah, and on the other end, if there's someone out there that wants to make something of me.
Yes. Most definitely. I mean, how hard is the fundraising thing? Is that a real pain in the neck, or is that just a constant?
It's something that I'm sure I'm going to have to deal with for the rest of my life. But obviously, the bigger your name is and the more work you've put out there, the easier it becomes, you know. So I don't think I would have been able to raise the money I've raised already for Life Tracker if I hadn't made How to Make a David Lynch Film or Money Please or the other short films that I've done, because nobody would have been able to see that I have the ability to even make a movie. So now they can, and they're a little more confident. And hopefully when I've got, you know, even more success, they'll be able to look at me and give me a little bit more money.
Well, it's definitely working well for you. And I'm loving the projects that you've done so far. There's a few more on your website that I need to go and check out.
Right on.
But I've got the list around. I'm going to probably watch a few of those throughout the day.
Let me know what you think.
Yeah, definitely will do. Definitely will do. But no, thank you very much for coming on again, Joe.
Thank you.
And I shall bid farewell to the listeners for now. So I shall see you on the next program.